Hello everyone, SirMonkeySuit Zappy here, back again with Hunter Hunter. We're on episode 55, and in the last episode we had more fortunes being told. Of course, Chrollo had stolen the fortune-telling sort of Nen with his sort of book of magic thing, whatever the fuck it is and however the hell it works, I have no idea. But he stole it, and we got a look in at other people's verses, and it was interesting because of the little sort of nuances, the little differences between the different members of the group, and because of that, obviously you can put them together like a jigsaw puzzle and try to figure out what's going to happen. So yeah, it was very interesting to say the least. The most interesting one though was obviously Hisoka, mainly due to the fact that we're getting a sort of insight into what will happen regarding him, considering the fact that he is the most mysterious one, like a mysterious character out of the lot of, you know, the amount of characters that there actually is in the show. But not only that, also because the fact that it changed when it was given to Pakanoda. Now, there are a few different things that this could have been. If you didn't listen to my last discussion, discussion for last episode, I basically went through what I thought it was and the possibility of it being that it doesn't matter whoever reads it. Whoever reads it, it tells their fortune, no matter who it was written for in the first place. So it could be that. That's my main theory at the moment. I think that's probably what it is. The second thing that I thought it might be was the texture surprise thing that Hisoka has. Obviously, he used it on his tattoo. He used it to cover up the fact that both of his arms got cut off a few episodes back. So it has been used before, and I'm not sure if, I guess to this degree it could work. I'm just trying to think out like the little details that it would, to basically rewrite down something entirely different in the space of transferring it over. I just don't know how that's physically plausible. And I'm saying physically plausible in the sense that, like, from the rules of our world, I guess it doesn't really apply in the Hunter x Hunter world, but whatever. I also want to say thanks to Artificial Flavors on Patreon as well, because he gave me some sort of heads up, some answers that I was looking for in regards to what happened last couple episodes. So it's pretty safe to say that Chrollo doesn't have a number, and therefore Nobunaga would be number one. For those of you that don't recall, I was talking about how I wasn't sure if Nobunaga's fortune, it was referring to the first moon. I was thinking I would like that Chrollo, because he is the chief, he would be the first moon. That also answers the fact of like me thinking that, wait a minute, there's 13 members, but they're talking about months and there's only 12 months. So yeah, it makes sense that he wouldn't have a number, as he is the sort of like the whole spider, if you will, because they kept bringing up that sort of analogy. So yeah, when losing half of the limbs, he is the whole spider. Therefore, it makes sense that he is not just the chief of the thing, but also, if you're in terms of an analogy, he is the whole spider in a way. So when he's losing these limbs, it's talking about his own thing, the Phantom Troupe. And the other thing that he pointed out, if I just get it up here, the phone call from Hisoka. So I got a bit confused in regards to Hisoka and him talking about the phone. Obviously, Kurapika thinking that the Phantom Troupe was dead or whatever. I got a bit confused because Kurapika was on the phone with Gon, and Hisoka was on the phone as well, and I was kind of confused as to what that was about. I think, and he pointed out, Artificial Flavors pointed out that the reason what was happening there was Hisoka was trying to call Kurapika, but Kurapika was on the phone with Gon. So basically Hisoka couldn't get through, and that's what it was. I just got a bit confused to what that was. So yeah, thank you Artificial Flavors for that. And now I'm just ranting on. So yeah, I think it's probably best we just get into this episode and see what we get. So without further ado, let's go. Okay, another episode where I spent like a good 20 minutes writing down stuff just to make sure that I got like all the details that I did want to talk about, and made sure I got them right as well, because obviously I don't want to fuck things up. But so I guess we'll just start from the very beginning. So Hisoka saying that the first verse was true. Of course it never was, considering the fact that it changed and it wasn't his original fortune telling. But by using texture surprise, which he did do, which I'm kind of bittersweet about that one, because I was kind of hoping that it was the other one where, like, well, I guess not, because the way that it panned out, I'm fucking totally on board with it and I love. But I was so fucking chuffed with myself, like thinking, oh, I'd got it with the whole no matter who look, like if you look at it, it's your fortune. But at least I did mention the whole thing that it could be the texture surprise thing as well. So I guess I was I guess I still did kind of get it before it told me what it was. But the way that it panned out was so great. Hisoka played them so well, like just down to a T as well, but also from the fact that he completely had bet on Crollo figuring it all out. Basically, otherwise, Hisoka would have been fucked. But just by playing that card, that was intentional. Okay, but anyway, yeah, the idea that he completely put like full trust in Crollo's smarts to figure out the whole conditioning and the whole state and the rules power was great. And all to make sure that they stayed here and didn't move out. And just from the fact that it's from Hisoka's own reasoning why he wanted them to stay, right? It wasn't like because he didn't do it out of any reason for Gon and the group and Kurapika and whatnot, you know what I mean? But it's so good that Hisoka, somebody who is like quite easily and in some ways is very antagonistic, is doing like, he's sort of like the anti-hero at this point, and doing things like on the same, like it's like that, like them and like Kurapika and all them are on like the same wavelength of keeping them here. And it's just great that like both of their goals line up in that regard, you know what I mean? And the reason why obviously Hisoka sought out Kurapika in the first place. It's great, and just the way that it all panned out, I absolutely loved it. It just goes to show that like Hisoka, like his head game's on point as well, you know what I mean? And it's really good. But also like that whole exposition basically explains the reasoning as to why Hisoka wanted to get everyone. It wasn't so that he could get everyone else's fortunes as well as like, oh, we can maybe figure something out based upon other people's fortunes, but it was to make sure that he stayed here, which is it's great. I love it. So yeah, also it was very smart of him to, when he was labeling the 8 people that apparently he gave away, that he never mentioned Troupe, because that further sort of it means the ball is always is more in Hisoka's court, and people would tend to believe him more by thinking that he didn't know Troupe's powers beforehand. It just basically gets Crollo on board with them more. So yeah, that was very smart as well. I just really liked it. So yeah. Then we cut over to Kurapika and whatnot, basically pointing out that the first target is Pakanora, so they are going for her. Of course, she is it's really interesting seeing Kurapika's sort of state of mind change. I mean, Leorio said it as well, but the reasoning is because with the other guys now involved, if they were to get caught and Pakanora decided to do the whole memory thing again, they would be in a world of hurt. So it just goes to show, along with other things in this episode and previous ones as well, like there was a lot of sort of friendship moments in this episode. But Kurapika not wanting them to be in harm's way says a lot. And later on as well, when Kurapika said that I'll be risking my life telling you this or whatever, that immediately, without no hesitation, Leorio stood up and asked Kurapika and him to get out and leave, which was really nice to see. But yeah, so that was really cool. Where are we at? Kurapika also mentioning that he needs a diversion, and I was expecting I mean, when he immediately brought it up, I was expecting like something a bit elaborate, but it seems to be very fucking simple because he said he only needs a second. A second. I mean, I suppose if we're talking about how he got Uvo that one time, I suppose it's not too dissimilar. Like, he got him and he fucking, you know what I mean? He pulled him towards him and pulled him out of the way within like a split second. So I guess it is like right. He says he can also do it within half a second. I mean, that's quite nuts when you think about it. You know what I mean? You're talking like I know it's Nen, so I don't know if Nen has like some I don't know if there's some handle on the real world where Nen actually has weight to it, or if it's just aura, so it's weightless. Because I'll be thinking, like, if you're talking about actual change with chains, which they're obviously not, like, there is some, you know, kinetic force involved in throwing a chain around someone. It's not going to get there in half a second, or even a second. You know what I mean? And especially considering the fact that, you know, it is a second to grab someone. Then we can only assume that they're going to be keeping like each other's eyes on each other pretty much at all times. So you'd have to assume that Kurapika is thinking about grabbing him from quite far away, like he did with Uvo, which, you know, that length to get wrapped around and so on. I mean, I'm probably just talking too much into it. I probably should be just thinking like, oh, well, it's anime, so who cares? You know what I mean? I just think it's funny to talk about. But yeah, anyway, yeah, it doesn't matter. He needs a second, so, you know, can he give him that? Even Gon was like, I don't know if I can give him that. Like, a second. Surely there has to be something. But there also has to be other things at play. Like, there's other factors involved. Like, what if, you know, if Pakanoda's in like a you know, because they don't know what they're planning, right? This is all based upon like the Phantom Troupe not knowing anything. And now with them being in groups, like there's no guarantee that Pakanoda's going to be in the right place for Kurapika to snag her. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, Leorio popped up and said that the condition can be rescinded. Which I mean, I guess so. When he initially said that, I was like, wait, what? So it's because I remember when we first got that exposition on how the condition thing worked, and I was like, oh fuck, like, you know, he's basically done this based around the Phantom Troupe. So even if he went through all the Phantom Troupe members and killed them all, that you would be fucked afterwards, because you'd basically have these useless chains that you wouldn't be able to do anything with, because you wouldn't be allowed to use them on other people. But you know, it's interesting now, like all of this stuff, this information that we're getting now, that it's not that at all anymore, and that he changed the rules. And he, you know, I suppose if you can like change them up a bit midway through, then I guess there's nothing to say that you can't just get rid of them as well immediately afterwards, which is, yeah, it's very interesting. So I mean, does that mean there's not like a limit to it? Then you can just keep adding a condition, like you could literally just, you know, stake out an opponent and then make a condition completely that would put you with an advantage on that person and then take it away. You know what I mean? Because I feel like, I don't know, I'm a bit on the edge, or like on the fence about how I feel about that, about being able to just take away a condition. There has to be a limit to that, because otherwise that's a bit shocking. I think that's a bit OP if that's the case, because I don't, like, because then I don't see why they wouldn't just be like, oh, I'm going up against this person, I don't know, I'll put on a condition that says that, you know, I'm only allowed to use this against this one person, and if I don't, I die. And then he goes to do that fight with that one guy, having a massive advantage throughout the whole thing, like he does with the Phantom Troupe. And then, after the end of the fight's done, take away the condition. You know, like, it seems a bit much. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a limit on it or what. Like, if it's a bit like, I don't know, maybe it's a bit physically or mentally straining by using this time and time again. I don't know. But I'm sure we'll get all that information if it does occur that way. If not, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, but we'll see. So yeah, we've got also 5 chains all containing different abilities, and he only fucking named 2 of them. And I know for a fact the reason why he didn't he didn't talk about the other 3 was because it's just for the sake of the audience. Like, you know, when he eventually does use them, it's going to be like, oh, what? kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's that. I mean, he did say like 5 chains, different abilities. So that subtitle alone, and again, it is subtitle, so I'm not sure if it's just, you know, the difference in language, it may not be right entirely, but like by the subtitle alone, that tells me that he already has 3 other abilities in the 3 other chains that he's not telling us. And it's not just a case of I'm only using 2. Like, I only have 2 right now. I haven't applied the other powers for the other chains yet, you know. But, you know, I could be completely wrong there. But of course, you know, we've heard these ones before, and obviously the fight with Uvo. So, but it's interesting that, you know, there's some other things that have come to light because he was explaining them. So, so yeah, 2 of them are strictly for, or basically attacking. I suppose that's actually a wrong subtitle, because he says 5 chains, 2 of them are for attacking spiders, right? But theoretically, only 1 of them is used for attacking spiders. The second one, just you can use it because you can attack them anyway, right? Because it's not, like, he literally explains that. He says, obviously, the first one's chain jail, which obviously we know all about. You know, but the interesting thing he did say was that it forces them into a state of zetsu, right? And that's the one where, like, you conceal your aura and you're in a state of, like, you know, relaxation, but while using that you can't use anything else, which is why obviously they can't use Nen, because it forces them into that state, which is great. It's also, I didn't even think about this, but that's awesome as well, because the fact that he can't use his Nen, but also the fact that of forcing them into concealment means that when he does have them tied up, like, it's not like you know, he'll not appear up on anyone's radar, so to speak, you know? Like, they can't just go around, like, trying to sense, like, they couldn't sense Uvo's aura, right? Because, you know, because of that state of Zetsu, so that's cool. But yeah, there's that. And then the Judgment Chain, so, that's the one that is the condition for stating rules that they must follow, otherwise they die, which is awesome. But the chain jail's the only one that is strictly against spiders and can't be used against anyone else's, at least until he rescinds it, I guess. After the Phantom Troupe is gone and done with, I guess he can just be like, right, well, that's it, I don't need it anymore, rescinded. So yeah, Judgment Chain can be used against anybody, but it can only be used when his eyes are scarlet, and he's basically just told us that he can conjure that up at will now, which I thought it was strictly like an emotional thing, which I thought, you know, lended well to you know, the situation anyway, because I figure, like, when, you know, Kurapika or anyone from the Kurta clan would be in combat, like, your kind of emotions are heightened anyway, so I figured like Scarlet Eyes would happen regardless if you were in combat. But I don't know, I mean, I guess not, but yeah, it's interesting anyway. It's also really really smart as well to have the Judgment Chain specifically, you know, like, not just be for the Phantom Troupe and allowed to be against anyone as long as he has the Scarlet Eyes, because when he has the Scarlet Eyes, he becomes a specialist, which is fucking huge, and it also means that, like, he's not limited to like, if he needs to go up against anybody else for whatever reason, that he's not limited and unable to become a specialist because he's only allowed to use that against the Phantom Troupe, meaning that he can't use his Scarlet Eyes and he can't become specialist, and, you know, there's that whole thing. So it's smart to have that you know, be the case. And also the chain jail's the middle finger, so that's great. I don't know, I just kind of had this thought in my head that, like, every time he is using it against, because it's strictly for spiders, that when he uses it, he's basically flipping them off. I mean, I suppose it's that way, but I don't know, I kind of just, I don't know why. I just had the image in my head. Just like every time he uses it's a middle finger to them. Literally, it's great. I love it. And then the judgment chain is the pinky. So yeah, I mean, I did have to go back through and like because he was obviously talking about his middle finger and pinky, and I was like, wait a minute, like is he talking about the like other abilities here? But you know, just because it flashed through and I didn't really get it, that's why obviously I went back through and you know, before this discussion, you know, wrote it down, so I realized. But yeah, so we had Kurapika, who, I mean, I fucking hell, I mean, so he can copy things, which, yeah, that's all well and good, but to copy buildings, like, that's fucking nuts. I would love to know like how he does it, because when he was doing it with the auction stuff, right, he was like literally touching it with one hand. I feel like if you're touching a building, and again, I'm probably just looking too far into this, but if he was touching a building, does that mean like, because I don't know if he was just touching a brick of the building, if it would only copy the brick, or it would copy the things that it's attached to, which I guess that must be what it is. Otherwise, he would be going around touching, there's a window, I need to touch that. You know what I mean? And then put it in place. So I guess it's just whatever else is, but then you would be copying the world because it's attached to the floor. I don't know. I think I'm looking too much into it, but whatever the case, doesn't matter. He's done like 50 of them or whatever he said he could do. And I guess he's surrounded the original base. Because I was thinking like if he'd put them elsewhere that wasn't near the base, then it would be pointless, because Killua and Gohan know exactly where it is. But if it's surrounded the base, then they don't know which building exactly it is, which means that, you know, it's a great way. And like he says, it functions as N, which is the one where it's like a tripwire or a you know, a laser grid. Like if something comes into contact with it, it's basically like an alarm system going off, and you know, Kurapika realizes that that's someone there, and I figure that their base is kind of a bit out of the way, so that if anyone does come in, it's a bit odd, meaning that they're probably here for the Phantom Troops. So yeah, it's a great system, especially considering how like the fact of when Nobunaga used it, it was literally like it was within like sword's reach, right, and that was it. I don't know if he could like expand that a bit more just based around his own thing, but the fact is that Kurapika can use it as I assume he could probably use it as wide as he wants. I don't know. That's a big fucking end thing though, but I suppose it makes sense considering the fact that I don't know if he's really useful for anything else, so I guess they kind of have to give him something that makes him not useless. Because, you know, I don't know if he has any nen regarding fighting. I don't know, but yeah, that's that. So yeah, Hisoka said that he revealed two people's powers. Uva was one, so that's pointless now. But the other one was Shizuku. So I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong. I can't remember him talking. I can't remember him giving that up on the screen. So I have to assume that he gave that. Him and Kurapika have been talking off screen then. It's interesting that why would he give away just Shizuku's? Unless that's the only power that he really knows about, which I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's just it's interesting though. Like why only hers? Unless like if information's being exchanged in a trade, then maybe only one person is, I guess, worthy enough of the information that Kurapika gave him. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have anything else to really say on that. I just found it interesting that it was only Shizuku and Uva that he mentioned, which, yeah. Yeah, this was an interesting one. So there was a quote from, I guess, Finks that said that Phaeton, Kurapika, and him didn't get their fortunes told because they lacked the data. What does that mean? I mean, I don't know what that could possibly mean. They lacked the data. I mean, the only thing I could really take from that is the fucking weird fortune-telling monster thing that appears whenever fortunes are getting written. Couldn't get anything from them, I guess. So what, if they tried to, like, write down their fortune, it just wouldn't happen? I don't know. But, like it just turned up blank, or just didn't write, or what? I don't know. It's interesting because then it might... I would like to believe that it's something that is canon and, like, real in their universe, and not just we're not getting their guys' fortunes because we don't want to tell the audience what is going to happen with those people, and they want it to be a surprise. Because if that's the case, I would have just preferred if they just didn't mention that. You know what I mean? Because I wouldn't have second guessed anything if they never mentioned that they didn't get their fortunes told. I mean, I wouldn't be saying like, oh, I haven't heard Finks's fortune, you know what I mean? Because I don't think I would have even been that bothered. But the fact that they mentioned it makes me think that hopefully that there is some canon reason as to why they lack the data, and maybe it's something to do with the fact that they're like they can't be read or something, like you can't read them. So maybe there's something to do with that. But then I would have thought that the same would have been with Hisoka in a way. Though that being said, Hisoka's a weird one, because while I do say Hisoka is very mysterious and stuff like that, and he's a bit like, you know, like, we know what he's about now. So a lot of it could be for audience, for a reason of the audience not, like, supposed to know what's going on yet, and just it's revealed later on, and therefore it's an exciting reveal. But, I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. But hopefully it's a canon reason and not just the sake for the audience, you know, not allowed to know at this point. But yeah. So Gon said that he had a plan for Greed Island, but that it's a secret and he's not going to tell us yet, which is fucking great. Talking about things that like the audience is not allowed to know right now, that could, I reckon that's a reveal as well. Has to be, because then it's going to come out like for whatever reason. I have to think that it's related to the Phantom Troupe in some way, and I was trying to think like what could it possibly be. Like, is there some way that, you know, because they only really know Pakanoda's power, right? And I was wondering, like, could it be related to her? But I don't know how. Like, because I was thinking, like, is Gon trying to use like Pakanoda's power for, yeah, you know, to somehow get Green Island? I don't know how that would be the case. I was just thinking, like, you know, what could he? I'm trying to get ahead of what the show is telling me what I shouldn't know at this point. Well, I don't know. Whatever the fuck. Squala and I believe Eliza. I believe it's Eliza because that was the person that he named on the phone, right? And they seem to have this sort of relationship going. They said bye to each other. Now, if that's not a death flag, I don't know what is. Because I feel like this is the first time we've ever seen them like actually legitimately acknowledge each other and say anything when they're on screen together. Because the only other time was on the phone, right? And I, you know what I mean? Like, fucking hell. Yeah, I mean, if that's our death flag, I don't know what is. Otherwise, what the fuck was the point in that? I don't know. Unless it's just establishing their relationship a bit more so that maybe down the line, I don't know, maybe one of them does die and it's a bit more impactful, but I don't know. It sounds like a death flag to me, to be honest. So yeah. Right, so that is that. The last thing I have, actually we'll go through the groups first. So the groups that they are sticking with now is Shizuku, Pakanoda, and Machi, 3 lasses, which is interesting. So it's interesting that he decided to put Shizuku and Pakanoda together when those are part of the 3 that they're pretty sure that if they stay here, they're going to die, right? He's already decided they're staying. So it's interesting that he puts 2 of the ones that are for sure going to die, according to the fortunes, together. That being said, though, he did say that Machi had very sharp instincts. So maybe by putting them with Machi, maybe it's one of those things where it's like they'll be less at risk because they are with Machi. Also, that being said, Shalnark, along with Nobunaga as well, is going with Crollo. I think Crollo, and that the reason why he's putting him with, bringing Shalnark with him is because you can trust like the other people as well, but I think obviously he trusts no one but himself the most to get the job done if that's the case. So by having Shalnark with him, Crollo can be at peace knowing that he can stay with Shalnark and nothing's going to happen to him, kind of thing, So yeah. But a lot of this stuff, like, especially considering the fact we got 2 new fortunes today that we actually, that I wrote down, so we will go through them. It's interesting on those how this is going to relate to their groups, because they're supposed to stay in their groups, right? But, there's alone stuff here, so I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so there's that, along with Nobunaga. Crollo, I think, with Nobunaga as well, keeping him close to, because Nobunaga right now is very... he's on the edge, and he's very, like, he's very emotional right now, so he might do something that, at least if he's next to Crollo and Crollo's got his eye on him, then at least he can't do anything too drastic. So yeah, Kurapika, Finks, and Phaeton, yeah, so interesting that they are getting put together, especially considering the fact that, like I said before, there was that whole thing about they didn't get their fortunes, or they didn't get any fortunes because they lacked the data. So it's interesting how they're getting put together. Kind of makes me think that they are not in the firing line at all, and it wouldn't surprise me if we don't really see them a lot within these next few episodes, at least while we're dealing with the whole Shizuku, Pakanoda, and Shalnark thing. And finally we had Bono Lenov, which Franklin and Hisoka. So I'm assuming Bono Lenov is basically the one the one Phantom Troupe member that I think is, as of right now, the most pointless. I don't know what he does. Maybe that means that he's not the most pointless because we don't know anything that he does, meaning that he's quite scary because we can't predict him. I think it's the guy that's like the mummy, right? I think that's Bono Lenov. If it's not, then it's Franklin, which I feel like is no. I don't think that guy's name's Franklin. If it is, I'm going to find it ridiculous. I think Franklin's the big guy, right? The fucking machine gun fingers. I think that's him. And then Hisoka, they're staying there. So, yeah. That's interesting. It's interesting that you said that they're staying there, which means that Crollo, the Crollo group, the Kurapika group, and Phaeton group, whatever, and the Shizuku, Pakanoda, and Machi group, all of them are going out then and not staying here. So what's their plan then? That's the thing. That's what I'm wondering. Like, what is their plan? Is it that, like, to seek out hopefully the chain user and get there first? I don't know. It's just so interesting. Like, back to Hisoka's like whole game plan of like basically playing the Phantom Troupe against each other, even though they're supposedly a tight-knit group, you know what I mean? Like, they're playing them against each other by making sure that what was said in his fake fortune telling was that half people would die if they were to leave as well. So either way, half people are dying, So yeah, I don't know what the game plan is with Crollo and sending people out, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe it's just a case of like, instead of waiting here to die, maybe it's a case of like, I'm gonna go and fucking hit like face first kind of thing, I'll seek my own death out kind of thing, even though he'll not die, but so yeah, right, we've got 2 new fortunes. So we've got Pakanoda's, which was, on a dark day with very little light, you will face 2 choices in a small room. Pride or betrayal, while the Deathbringer hovers near. So interesting that both of these fortunes don't outline a lot. Now I have to assume that we are just skipping past the whole fucking other one, which was fucking, what was it? It's in here somewhere. The calendar loses a precious component, right? I think we're just skipping all that stuff. But Shizuku had it as well, and also she said that there was only 2 verses, meaning that that's how she knows she's going to die, because there's only 2 verses, the rest wasn't written. And it's interesting, I think with Pakanoda and Shalnark, it's the same, meaning that their deaths, it kind of rings true on the whole, you know, the original thing where they, oh God's sake, what was it? I need to keep going back to make sure I've got this right. So yeah, the chrysanthemum on the flower of September being number 9, blooms in August 8, and withers in June 6. Yeah, so it it all adds up, and it makes sense in this regard, if that's the case. But it's also interesting going back to the whole if Kurapika thinks and Phaeton didn't get their fortunes written because they lack the data, does that mean it's possible to... Is it possible for someone's fortune to be written like having only 2 verses and not the rest? Like, could that be possible? Because I just feel like if a fortune can't be written at all because of lack data, then I don't know, maybe it's the case that it can only write for the next week and it doesn't know anything beyond that. So I don't know. It could be a case of like, just because there's 2 verses doesn't mean that your time ends after that. You know what I mean? Because there's nothing there. I don't know. I'm just, I'm speculating what could be the case. But yeah, so on a dark day with very little light. Well, it says day, so... But I guess if we're going with prophecies and fortune tellings and things where you're not supposed to take things literally, it could just mean nighttime. But it says day, so I don't know. It's nighttime now where Killua is looking on over at the copied buildings and stuff, and it's fucking pissing down with rain. So it's possible that could happen into the next day, into the following day, and it has to be a dark day there. But you'll face 2 choices in a small room. Pride or betrayal. Seems relatively the same between her and Uvo. Generally with the idea of, are you going to get, Kurapika give him a choice, like, basically in a nutshell, to give up your Phantom Troop members, or not, and die. So that was basically pride or betrayal. Uvo chose pride. I figure it's going to be the same thing. I think as while the Deathbringer hovers near. Which, I mean, again, that's another interesting way of wording something, because it could be the case of, it could be the similar, like, to Uvo's situation, where it's a choice between pride or betrayal based upon the judgment chain, or it could be the fact of, it could be something completely different. Like, maybe it's a case of, like, saving herself to, like, if she knows that she's in a dire situation, then maybe she saves herself and gives away another person, going back to the whole Shizuku thing, her fortune was beware solitude above all, you have the most fear when you are alone with another. Now, when I was talking about that episode and Shizuku's fortune, I basically said it couldn't be any Phantom Troop member, because if you're alone, that means you're alone. You're not with another person, right? Because then you're not alone. However, the whole thing about being alone with another can be correct in terms of, it depends on if it's somebody who is not trustworthy or someone that you don't know and is a complete stranger. Then you're alone with another person. Otherwise, I don't think you're really alone if you're with someone that you trust. So, depending, I don't know, because it could work either way. I just find it interesting that this all stems from the part of the verse that says, while the Deathbringer hovers near. While the Deathbringer hovers near. Like, not, it could not even be in the same room, which means that it's telling me, like, because also if I'm looking from a different perspective and just like as a viewer watching on, do I really want, the same sort of thing to happen time and time again with Kurapika just using the judgment chain on them time and time again, or do I want something a bit different? And would the story be written that way? That maybe Pakanoda could be in a case where maybe she's with Shizuku and she gives up Shizuku to save her own life, and there could be a case of like pride of betrayal kind of thing. I don't know what could happen, but you know, that's just my thoughts on it. So yeah. Yeah, so that's actually, I tell you what, that could be another thing as well. The whole Shizuku thing with being alone with another person, and Pakanoda being the you know the one that Kurapika's after right now. Like that's the, you know, the one they're after. That's the goal. I'd have to assume that that's the group that's going to be attacked first, right? So, because there's two, you know, deaths within that group, and I wonder, pride or betrayal, worry about being alone with another person. Could it be possible that Machi is also a bit untrustworthy? Like, could she be a bit of a, you know, because I mean, it could. This is based upon, you know, just from the fact is like she's been a bit, you know, she was so upfront about not wanting to hire Gon, right, as one of the fucking Phantom Troupe members and whatever. But also the fact that the first time we saw her, she was with Hisoka. And I don't want to rule out anything, so I feel like it's interesting that she was with Hisoka was the first time we met her. Of course, that doesn't mean much because we know that Hisoka's been a part of the Phantom Troupe for quite a bit now, right? Quite a while, so it doesn't, you know, there's nothing to say that he couldn't just been hanging out with Machi because they're fellow Phantom Troupe members. I don't know. I'm just trying to speculate, right, about what could be different and not it just be the similar, you know, the similar shit that goes down. But, you know, it just seems to be like a lot of interesting things surrounding that group of girls. So, I don't know. We'll just have to see. Alright, so anyway, let's get on to Shalnok. So, Shalnok is do not make any phone... It's interesting. His is all based around phone calls, as is his power, which is, you know, interesting. So, yeah. Do not make any phone calls. When it matters most, you will likely be unable to reach anyone. It would be unwise to answer the phone, for the Deathbringer will come calling 1 time in 3. It's almost like it's almost like a, I don't know. It feels like almost a pointless fortune. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, don't make any phone calls, don't answer any. You know what I mean? But the interesting... I don't know. I feel like with Shalnok, it's a lot of... It's like probability thing. It's like, well, maybe not. Whereas with the other fortunes, it seems a bit more set in stone, a bit more concrete. Whereas Shalnok seems like, don't make any phone calls. When it matters most, you will likely be unable to reach anyone. Likely. Not certainly. Likely. And then, you know, it would be unwise to answer the phone. For the Deathbringer will be calling 1 time in 3. So it's a 1 time in you know, a 1 in 3 chance that the Deathbringer will come calling. But also, like, you see, if you read out that last sentence as 1, like, it would be unwise to answer the phone, for the Deathbringer will come calling 1 time in 3. Now, if you read that as 1, then it would seem that for some reason Kurapika would be calling Shalnok on the phone, which doesn't seem right. I don't see the reason why Kurapika would feel the need to call Shalnok. You know, I don't. And why would that even matter? Why would that be unwise? Because you're kind of safe at the other end of the phone. You know what I mean? I think it would be worse to be in face to face with Kurapika, right? But it's just it's so interesting with Shalnark because it's all probability. It's not like, it doesn't seem as set in stone as the other fortunes do. The other fortunes seem a bit more like, you know, this is what will happen. Whereas this one just seems to be like, maybes, and maybe's not. Who knows? Maybe it's a case of like, with Shalnark, maybe we'll get a moment where he has to make a decision. Does he go against the fortune and answer the phone, or try and make a phone call that could possibly save his life, or does he do it to risk his life? It's all like a risk-reward kind of thing, like flipping a coin, which is interesting considering the fact that Phantom Troupe flip coins to, you know, to settle the debates. So I don't know. Maybe that's what he does. Maybe he's like, fuck it, I'll flip a coin, because he has a debate with himself whether or not he wants to make a phone call, answer a phone call, or don't. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting either way. And I mean, I'd have to assume that at this point, you know, likely being able to reach anyone, it's another case of these are people that are supposed to be in groups and yet they're alone. How does this happen? You know what I mean? Like, I'm telling you, there has to be a good reason as to why they end up splitting up from these groups. If it's just a case of them just being incompetent, I'm going to be a bit disappointed. But I don't think that'd be the case, especially with Shalnark and Crollo. Crollo's not going to be, you know. So, I don't know. Unless Crollo's like, fuck it, I'm going to use him as bait. I don't know. Very interesting episode, though. So, yeah, another long discussion, because these episodes are real, like, it's just getting better and better every episode, I think. So, yeah, I'm really enjoying this. But that is all I've got for episode 55. So, thank you for watching. In the description below, I've linked certain things. One of them is the Discord. You can get yourself over there if you want any information on regarding my content. And I also have a Patreon as well. So, if you do want to support me on there, that'll be very much appreciated. There is a bunch of different tiers and rewards depending on how much you want to support me with. So, there's things like early access, of course. $5 a month, you get access to shows a week early. And you get 4 episodes of Hunter x Hunter every week, not only 2, like the general public get. There is also full length on there, and there's also other tiers where you can pay for certain shows to be reacted to as well. So yeah, that's all I've got. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.